On the left, 17th right now, you have Devin Koepke, team card hoarder, making a push here in Season 2. If he makes it into the top 8 on this tournament, he could be one of the sleeper picks to make it to the Players' Championship this weekend.
Oh, wow. Another thing about Bant Humans, if Brad Nelson is playing this deck in this standard format, hard to believe it's bad against stock Bant Company.
Koepke will be the first play of the game. Turn 2, it is Sylvan Advocate as we go back to Brad. Yeah, I would be surprised if Brad Nelson was playing something that was poor against Bant Company.
Yeah, the best, most popular deck, yeah, we'll just sacrifice that matchup. I can't believe that that's true.
And to be fair, it looks like, and we'll get to that, card hoarder has put together kind of a throwback sideboard. We'll get there in a second. Brad, Fortified Village showing a basic forest. He'll play Thraben Inspector on turn 2 here.
Not the most exciting turn 2 play, but this deck generally gets going around turn 3 or 4 anyway.
Clue Token is on its way as we go to Devin's third turn. Swing of 4-2, Brad to 18. And it'll be Selfless Spirit from him, and then an Evolving Wilds. See the token from Thraben Inspector there, Max McVitie, our most recent invitational winner. He has already punched his ticket to the Players' Championship. Brad passes the turn with 3 mana up. Now, no copies of Spell Queller in this list. That's the first thing you look for in Standard when you see that kind of mana.
Yeah, what does he have here? Just Dromoka's commands?
Yeah, it looks like Dromoka's command cracking a clue, I suppose.
This suggests to me there might be a very Eclectic Company heavy hand.
Yeah, it actually, okay, looks like we weren't done there. Brad's going to Reflector Mage the Selfless Spirit. So he wasn't passing the turn just to save on time. Koepke had already cracked Evolving Wilds. So apologies there. Now Koepke will take his 4th turn. It's Inspector next to Reflector Mage.
Must have been a gesture okaying a shortcut.
Sure. Swing with Advocate.
Now Brad, of course, could throw both of his creatures in the way here. On the table, it looks like he'd be able to eat the Advocate. Koepke, of course, representing Dromoka's command here. That would make that not work out so great.
For Koepke, he replaced the Sylvan Advocate, but did not make a 4th land drop. So Brad now with the opportunity to pull ahead on lands. So he draws, and I'm not sure he has one either.
Well, if neither player is casting Collected Company or Ojutai's command, this game starts to look really weird.
In Brad's,
looks a lot more like limited at that point.
Yeah. Brad's hand does have an Ojutai's command and a Dromoka's command in it. Lambholt Pacifist, Collected Company. I think, so he's deciding whether or not to go fishing for a land. If he cracks that clue and hits a land, he has a great turn.
Yeah, if it's an untapped land, especially, he has Lambholt Pacifist already, which he could cast.
Looks like he's not going to opt that way, as evidenced by his leaving up the blue mana.
Right.
Yeah, 2 companies, Lambholt Pacifist, Dromoka's command. Believe Ojutai's command. That makes up Brad's hand. So 3 4-mana spells.
And now that Koepke has represented Dromoka's command and is tapped out of the mana to cast it, this might be a really good window for Brad to cast his own.
Yeah. Lambholt Pacifist for Brad. He also misses the land. We go back to Koepke. Will he be the first person to hit land 4? Well, kind of. Looks like he hit Nissa Vastwood Seer.
Right, yeah, this will do, especially if Brad misses again.
So Nissa grabs a forest, puts it into play, and both players just start staring at each other from across the battlefield. Draw from Brad Nelson. We'll see in a second if he does hit the land. He does. It's Yavimaya Coast untapped, and he will go for a Collected Company immediately while Devin's mana's down.
Yep, goes for it straight away so he doesn't get caught by a Spell Queller.
But a whiff for Brad, or a near whiff. He hits just 1 creature, and it's Tireless Tracker.
And Brad's already missed a land drop this game, so any clues that are generated by that are going to come off the top of the deck.
Really just, how do we break this board stall then? Each player's playing, 1 creature per turn, but no damage being exchanged.
Yet it's not going to be broken quickly, is my answer. Koepke can start making Selfless Spirits and start flying in while the Advocates hold the fort on the ground.
It does look like Koepke has 2 main deck copies of Archangel Avacyn. We've seen some lists move away from that.
Combos very nicely with Selfless Spirit. He'll need another land before he can start casting Avacyn, but it's also just a great flying body on its own.
Yeah.
It's a weird one to me that they would move off of that card. It's among the very best cards in Standard, even with the addition of Eldritch Moon.
Well, Koepke will company back. Can he do one better than Brad? Brad hit a single Tireless Tracker. How about one worse? He misses completely and passes the turn.
Yeah, you know, when you're missing land drops, I mean, there's a lot of lands in your deck yet. Collected Company
where
is
they
not a
are.
guarantee, yeah.
You go back to Brad. Remember, he had a second company in his hand, and we might just see players take turns on firing these things off. But it looks like for Brad, he'll crack a clue, counter on Tireless Tracker. Because, and you saw there a retap there, as Brad hasn't physically drawn the card yet, that is still going to be legal.
We'll allow it.
And now a swing from Brad. The 4th point, that 1/1 counter on the Tireless Tracker means that Lambholt Pacifist can now attack. And Brad leaving up a scary representation where mana is concerned.
Right, leaving up Dromoka's command mana and making an attack that is questionable if he doesn't have it. Brad Nelson's the type of player that certainly would bluff a Dromoka's command in a situation like this. He's known for making attacks like that, but if he has it and Koepke bites, it can be really bad.
Right, see, so if Koepke, say, were to double block the tracker, Brad could put, say, counter on tracker, pacifist fights a advocate. I mean, no matter what he picks, it would just be bad.
Yes.
And now a huge play post-combat for Brad. It's Thalia's Lieutenant putting a counter on all 4 creatures. Woof.
Yeah, Koepke is solidly in trouble here. Missing on that Collected Company very well may have decided this game.
Reflector Mage will put Tireless Tracker back in Brad Nelson's hand. 5th land finally for Koepke, but it's a fortified village, so it enters the battlefield tapped.
5th land's good here. It makes it so a top deck Avacyn is very, actually still quite good for Koepke here. He's not terribly far behind on the table.
Well, and also as soon as he hits land 6, those Sylvan Advocates re-power up, right?
Right, also true. And he has a Lumbering Falls that he could activate at that point. So it's certainly not over yet.
Yeah, it feels like Koepke's 1 land from playing defense. The question is, I guess, when he gets to turn that defense into offense.
And Brad is still hanging out with Ojutai's command in hand.
Yeah, Ojutai's command, Dromoka's command, and Collected Company all still in Brad Nelson's hand.
It's a very solid grip.
Shuffle here from the former Player of the Year.
Now, if Brad had 6 lands in play, he'd be a lot more comfortable in his position. He could choose to commit to either Collected Company or Ojutai's command and leave up Dromoka's command all the while. Being choked on mana here makes his play a lot more difficult to make.
Looks like it will be Thalia, Heretic Cathar. And then a swing of the team from Brad Nelson. Okay, played a Canopy Vista, so he still has that Dromoka's command mana up.
Yeah, Dromoka's command, as well as the fact that Koepke's Sylvan Advocates are threatening to turn into 4/5 soon, so even if he ends up in a combat where he has to trade with one, that's fine. Trade with it while it's a 2/3, instead of letting them become 4/5s and making things more awkward for himself.
And you see Koepke arranging some blocks here. I don't know if he can assemble a block that doesn't get destroyed by Dromoka's command.
No, his creatures are just smaller than Brad's on average on their face. Right, and then beyond that, the Dromoka's command really messes up any double block.
He's going to make Brad have it, but Brad does. Sylvan Advocate goes on Thalia's Lieutenant, a double block on Lambholt Pacifist. I believe Brad will lose nothing here if this is played correctly. So yeah, 1/1 counter on Thalia's Lieutenant. Reflector Mage fights down Advocate, so Koepke will lose all 3 creatures and Nelson nothing.
If this is played correctly, he says of Brad Nelson.
You know, it's, and it was. There you go.
When this is played correctly.
Evolving Wilds for
Oh,
Koepke.
no.
Oh, Thalia does such a number on that.
Thalia's so good against Evolving Wilds.
Ugh.
Of course, Koepke doesn't have any 6-mana spells in the deck, so if he has Avacyn, he can just cast it, but he's got nothing.
And we are on to the second game. So Devin Koepke up, down 1-0 to Brad Nelson. In a game that was stalling out, and I'm surprised at just how quickly Brad's deck turned the corner.
Yeah, and that's exactly the power of Thalia's Lieutenant in this matchup. When your opponent is on 2-3s and your team turns into 3-4s, in addition to the Dromoko's command backup, it was pretty easy for just kind of to control combat. He was free to make attacks, Koepke wasn't. Koepke's blocks were bad. Missing on the Collected Company, again, huge for Koepke, let's not forget that. The Lieutenant is clearly very well positioned in this mirror matchup kind of situation.
All right, so we're going to look at the sideboards. We'll start over on Devin Koepke, the side of Band Company. 3 Eldrazi Displacer, a Dromoka's Command, 2 Gideon Alav Zendikar, 2 Tameo Field Researchers, 2 Negates, 2 Summary Dismissals, 2 Stasis Snares, and a copy of Nissa Vastwood Seer.
Big finds here, the 3 Eldrazi Displacer. If you can set up the Displacer Reflector Mage combination, really good in these creature mirror kind of matches. Like Dromoka's Command, get ahead on combat. We saw how great it was for Brad in that first game there. Gideon can help these board stalls, these planeswalkers, both Gideon and Tameo will enable you to, if creatures aren't able to attack, just pull ahead, generate value with these planeswalkers. In particular, Koepke has Selfless Spirit to fly over. Tameo can draw cards that way. You can use Tameo to tap Brad's creatures down, get head in combat that way. So I like the planeswalkers a lot, in addition to the Displacer.
All right, over on Brad Nelson's side, a Knight of the White Orchid, an Ojutai's Command, 3 Gideons of his own, 2 Declaration Stone, 2 Negate, 2 Nissa Vastwood Seer, 2 Tragic Arrogance, and then this last one, here's what I'm pretty excited about, 2 Heron's Grace Champions.
Yeah, that's a nice one for breaking combat up. We saw in that game, Brad was well advantaged because his team was +1/+1 on Koepke's team. Well, Heron's Grace Champion does exactly that. He also has planeswalkers of his own. Presumably, Knight of the White Orchid is great anytime he's on the draw. That's probably coming in almost every time that he expects to be on the draw. And in the mirror, you can use Tragic Arrogance to get ahead. It's a little awkward, but it's certainly an option that he has available to him. That's something I could see coming in against certain players, play versus draw. Very contextual card that Tragic Arrogance is.
All right, players here are going to get ready for the second game. 6-0, they're trying to become that perfect 8-0 player on day one. We're going to take a second to tell you about the newest promotion launched as part of StarCityGames.com Game Night. So we've been doing this for just about a year now. This is exclusive pins and foils coming as prizes at your local tournament every week. Right now for the month of August, this is the Young Burrowmancer. It's, I believe, your favorite token here. I know there's a kind of, can go alongside your Delver of Squeakrits.
That's my favorite. Pyromancer's fallen out of favor with me. Love the art on this guy, though.
No, this is great. So we have those available now, and new ones coming out every month. So next month it will be the Bone Chewer Giant. For your commander deck, we have this excellent Dog Warrior and pin given away. And if your store signs up by now, we can get you signed up in time for the October promotion, which is the Hedgehog, the family of hedgehogs that sacrifice other hedgehogs.
Well, just the big one sacrifices the other hedgehogs. The other one sacrifice forests, artifacts, what have you.
They're so unassuming there. They don't know what's coming. But you can sign up on that now over at StarCityGames.com/Game Night. A 6-on-6 for both players here. For Brad Nelson, a player which needs very little introduction, the Roanoke player, originally from the Fargo area, 8 open top 8s along with the win. He already has 2 invitational top 8s to name along with a win of his own. So many achievements in Magic. One of the things that's been really impressive to me is that Brad has gone from being world champion to being off the Pro Tour right back to being Platinum Pro. The ability to do that twice in a row is, to me, almost more impressive than just staying on the train.
Yeah, and Brad's written a lot about that experience for StarCityGames.com, and it was really a rude awakening to go from such a great season to just having an off year, and that really drove him to rediscover that discipline that was necessary for that great year in the first place.
Brad was the Players' Champion in 2014, made it all the way to the semifinals a second time in 2015. Been so dominant. 6-on-6 as we start the second game. The players will trade Evolving Wilds. For Devin Koepke, this has been his best year to date. Got his first open win less than a month ago. He's joined one of the top teams on the tour. And at 6-0, this is his deepest invitational run.
Yep, had some solid finishes outside of his win as well in the top 32 of opens and what have you.
All right, it'll be Sylvan Advocate from Koepke. Brad, both his lands appear to be Evolving Wilds, so he will have no plays on the first 2 turns. So back to Koepke. First damage is his as Brad goes to 18. And Eldrazi Displacers, you mentioned from the sideboard. There's Devin's card on turn 3. Now, the good news behind it for him, for Brad Nelson, is that Devin doesn't appear to have a colorless land source yet.
Right, he needs to find a Pain land or some colorless source in addition to a Reflector Mage.
Speaking of Reflector Mage, Brad will play one of those. After all, it's a human, so Displacer back into Koepke's hand. A swing and a block. Duskwatch Recruiter from Koepke and an Evolving Wilds.
Yeah, Brad didn't even have to think about that block. If you want to use your turn Dromoka's commanding away my Reflector Mage, sure.
That's why you're supposed to play your Noble Hierarch before attacking there.
Oh, yeah.
It's great in the Bantex, too.
Probably best to leave your Modern deck in your backpack during the standard leg of the tournament.
Oh, that's a good call. Nissa Vastwood Seer from Brad Nelson. That'll find him his 4th land. He plays it. So far, he is 4 for 4 on playing basics.
Yeah. His mana is clicking, though.
And this is a nice little number from Koepke. He played an Evolving Wilds, and actually, in his list, he found a Wastes on the end step. So there's the colorless mana source his Displacer was needing.
Yeah, once you start playing Displacer, that basic Waste, it just has to be in your deck.
So here players describe it as the best card to fetch for and the worst card to draw.
Yep, exactly. I played the card a little bit with the Displacer Reflector Mage package, and there's no better way to describe it.
Koepke, no plays. He'll flip his Duskwatch Recruiter into a Crawling Horde Howler. So the 3/3, leaving up conveniently 4 mana for companies or Spellquellers.
I believe he has Avacyn in his hand already.
Oh, wow. Okay. Tireless Tracker from Brad Nelson. Leaving up a green mana. And you're right, he has the double white. He could cast Avacyn here.
Yeah, just a couple really good options here.
Land from Brad makes a clue. He'll pass. And you're right, there is. He has Company and Avacyn.
Given the current board position, I'd be tempted to go for Company here.
It looks like Company, Avacyn, Displacer are Koepke's 3 cards. Now, a scary thing here is when you're playing on someone like Brad Nelson, I'm concerned Koepke waited a long time on end step there, and Brad's the kind of player who will snap in on that.
Yes.
Said, hey, you had a decision to make. I want, you must have more than one castable card here.
Right.
Avacyn swings on in along with the rest of the team. It looks like Devin has sent everything.
Yeah, he's at 6 lands, so the Advocate's 4/5 now.
Brad will crack a clue. His tracker goes up to 4/3. He draws.
And there's no blocks where Koepke doesn't at least 1 for 1 here.
Yeah, well, we're seeing the situation they had last game on reverse. I remember when Brad kept attacking and saying, hey, if I have Dromoka's Command, you lose. Now Brad's on the receiving end of it. If Devin has a Dromoka's Command, this block will lose Brad the game.
Right. In particular with the humans build, a lot of stuff like Thalia's Lieutenant that just gets so much worse if Koepke's able to keep your board clean.
Let's see what Brad goes for. He's going to throw in all the creatures. He's challenging Koepke to have the Dromoka's Command. Reflector Mage, Chumping Howler, a double block on Sylvan Advocate. Oh, and it could be worse for Koepke. It's Collected Company.
A Reflector Mage here would make that block get punished. Could even get a little cheeky with a Selfless Spirit just to make the Advocate indestructible if you found that.
And there it is, Reflector Mage and Duskwatch Recruiter. He will bounce the Nissa to Brad's hand. Both of Brad's creatures hit the graveyard. Brad takes 4, goes to 14, and the creature advantage is now 5-0 in Devin Koepke's favor.
If Brad sided in Tragic Arrogance, this is a pretty solid window for it.
Seems like it'd be just about time for that card, huh?
Yes.
Brad draws Reflector Mage. Does he have the sweeper? He does.
Oh my.
Shuffles it to the front of his hand. And I'm not sure Devin Koepke was expecting this one.
The way he played does not suggest that he was.
5 lands in play for Brad Nelson. Which one? I think he lets him, keep the...
Presumably the Reflector Mage.
Yeah.
Duskwatch Recruiter is the smallest creature, though it can go and find friends. If the Avacyn sticks around, it'll flip, hit Brad for 3, and then be a 6/5. And the Sylvan Advocate is just twice as large as Reflector Mage.
And the arrogance of that Collected Company from Devin is going to prove to be very tragic. All the
That's not even wordplay. You're just saying the words that are in the card name.
yeah, but look, this is a tragedy for him. We can't understate it. He's going to lose. Looks like everything but the Reflector Mage. He has one card in hand. Now, neatly, that card is Eldrazi Displacer, and Brad did leave him a Reflector Mage.
Yeah, he's got his combo.
Swing for 2. Here's Displacer. Koepke leaves up the 3 mana, including the colorless source. Brad's down to 12. So Koepke's going to have to scrape together some damage now that he's exhausted on cards.
Yeah, it looks like Brad has a Reflector Mage of his own, so he can commit a couple of creatures. Well, probably has to leave with the Reflector Mage. If he has Reflector Mage or Dromoka's Command, he could potentially just break up Devin's combo.
Well, the danger is what if Koepke gets another another Eldrazi Displacer down, then it becomes nearly impossible to break them up.
Yeah, because the Displacers can start blocking for each other. They
Right.
displace the other Displacer.
Declaration in stone on the Displacer for Brad Nelson. Displacer's exiled. Clue for Koepke. Brad making it look easy. Here's Lambholt Pacifist. Land 6 and a pass. Koepke's going to need some new cards, so he will crack the clue he was given. But 2 cards in his hand to what I think is 5 in Brad's. It looks like another Displacer.
The most value that Koepke can generate from 0 would be if he were to have either Tamiyo Field Researcher or Gideon Ally Zendikar in this window and to start generating card advantage that way. Tyler's Tractor's not bad, but he doesn't have a land to follow that up with.
Yeah, so he's trying to push the last damage across the finish line. Dromoka's Command put a counter on the Reflector Mage. It fought away Brad's only blocker, put him to 9, and then Koepke followed up with that Tireless Tracker. But there, on Brad's side, there are still 5, 6 cards for Koepke to get through.
Right.
He starts on Nissa, Vastwood Seer, finding land 7. That's going to flip her into a Planeswalker.
Yeah, Koepke would have liked to have had a Planeswalker. Brad just has a Planeswalker kicker.
There we go. The 2/2 turns into a Planeswalker. It's going to bring along we'll see a 4/4 Aura card.
Given the size of Koepke's creatures, I would expect to see a 4/4 here.
Reflector Mage bounces the tracker. Nissa does make the 4/4. And Brad will pass back. He's got 2 blockers for his Planeswalker. Devin cannot recast the tracker this turn.
Displacer here would not be enough to get in at the Nissa just yet.
Well, he has Displacer. He'll cast it. He'll displace away the token. Reflector Mage will swing at Nissa, and Brad either loses his Planeswalker or loses his Reflector Mage, his choice.
Presumably it's Reflector Mage. The Planeswalker will replace it. Most of Brad's cards are kind of worth as much as that 2/3 on the table.
It is. Reflector Mage down. Brad, once again, he's going to have to break up that combo of Displacer Mage. Nissa pluses to 2 draws Brad another Reflector Mage.
I think Brad has a Declaration in Stone at the ready to deal with the Displacer here.
4 mana. It looks like he might start on a Collected Company. He just needs more creatures.
Yeah, if you know you're going to be casting Company in this turn cycle, if you have Reflector Mage, you may as well just try to disrupt Kevin on that axis first.
6 cards, and Brad gets them both. Here's a Nissa and a Thalia's Lieutenant.
This is certainly a below average hit for Brad there.
Yeah, and on top of it, to kind of add insult to injury here, there's only 3 basic forests in Brad's list. And if you look at what he cast that Collected Company off of, there they all are.
Yeah, finally the fact that Brad opened on a bunch of basic lands has caught up. He missed on a little bit of value there. And the Lieutenant was pretty embarrassing as far as Thalia's Lieutenants go.
Yeah, Nissa is an elf. Tireless Tracker from Koepke. Here's a land, makes a clue. Brad did Reflector Mage away the Eldrazi Displacer with the remainder of his mana. But with all these tempo plays Brad's having to make, Koepke has nearly caught him on cards.
Yeah, Dustrush Recruiter certainly helps a lot on that axis.
Here is Selfless Spirit from Devin Koepke. Reflector Mage will swing at Nissa.
And with the removal spell, Brad using being the Declaration of Stone to deal with the previous Displacer, that just lets Koepke draw a card. Brad wasn't winning this game nearly fast enough for that to not matter.
A double block from Nelson on the Reflector Mage. Koepke will sacrifice the Selfless Spirit. So he'll basically trade that for Brad's Reflector Mage, and we go back to Brad Nelson here. He's at 9. He has not done any damage to Koepke yet.
Now, he's been playing an attrition game to this point, has yet to turn the corner and become the aggressor.
4 cards in hand for Nelson. Triple green. He's going to start with his own Tireless Tracker. That's a human. Thalia's Lieutenant goes up to 3/3. One thing I do like from Brad's side here is that because of all these human synergies he has, it's not unreasonable that his creatures just all eventually get bigger. Brad pluses, puts Evolving Wilds into play, flips his Nissa. And then makes a clue off Tireless Tracker. Here, cracks it, gets another clue.
That was an unfortunate interaction between the Nissa and the flipped Nissa and the unflipped Nissa. You can't miss the trigger on the unflipped Nissa, so it has to flip over. If Brad just drew a land naturally, he could have made the 4/4 with the previously flipped Nissa and then used the other Nissa to draw a card. But because he didn't draw the land and then he hit the land, he just kind of down a Nissa without getting that 4/4. We can use that one now. He's down 2 loyalty, or 3 loyalty rather, in that exchange.
So he got a free card. That Evolving Wilds was his free card off the first Nissa, but I think you're right. He'd rather have a creature than a card on this board.
Yeah, and he can still make the 4/4, but he would have more loyalty on the Nissa anyway.
Exactly. One of the most scary things about these Bant decks is just how they never run out of cards. You see Brad here, 7 lands, 8 lands, correct that. A Planeswalker, he's got clues, and he doesn't even have time to use them.
Yeah, and Brad's list is geared towards being a little bit more aggressive. There's slightly less value elements, and he's still not running out of cards.
Here we go. He pluses the second Nissa, gets a Yavimaya Coast, gets a 3rd clue. Definitely set up to play this attrition game plan. 4th clue from Thraben Inspector.
And that Thalia's Lieutenant is not small anymore.
No. Lambholt Pacifist, Thalia's Lieutenant to 5/5. And all right, after all this work, now it will attack. 1 card left in Brad's hand, but 4 clues. And finally, he will let Devin get a turn. So many more things than when Brad started the turn.
Yeah, his board does not look anything like it did a minute ago.
What is Koepke going to do about this? Let's see, does he have his own Tragic Arrogance?
No, his haymaker here is to try to set up that Displacer Reflector Mage combo. He does have, say, a Tamiyo Field Researcher in his list, though it's not really game-breaking here. It would be a solid tempo play, though. Brad's just going to start drawing a bunch more cards, and he can just get on the table, just double his board state in short order here.
6 mana from Koepke. It's going to be Displacer, Tracker, and a pass. Yeah, it feels like this isn't coming down to who can draw more cards. It's that Brad's cards cost, like Thalia's Lieutenant. Brad spent 2 mana on it, and it's a 5/5. And that, he's just being more efficient, and that's adding up.
Right, and earlier in this game, the Tragic Arrogance that Brad cast just set Devin so far behind.
Yeah, well, without the Arrogance, Brad loses on that turn, but you're right. It just restarted the game. And even after Tragic Arrogance, it wasn't immediately clear that Brad was going to turn the corner. But he had to leave Koepke with the Displacer Reflector Mage combo.
Yeah.
But now it's starting to feel like that Brad has turned the corner.
Yes,
he draws another card.
Koepke only has 1 colorless source, even if he is able to untap with his Displacer. And the thing about what he's facing down, Thalia's Lieutenant is a giant threat that you wish you could displace, but now Brad just has 3 other humans on the table. So displacing that is definitely not a strong proposition.
So see, Brad has started the turn by cracking 2 clues. His Tracker now up to a 6/5. He pluses Nissa, reveals Collected Company, draws that.
Looks like Brad has drawn his other copy of Tragic Arrogance. This does not look like he's going to want to be casting that one this game.
And yeah, here's the Collected Company. And you know that Devin Koepke has 1 land untapped right now and his 1 card in hand? That one's a negate.
That feels terrible.
For Brad's Company, it's a bit of a miss. It's only 1 creature, but I'm not even sure you want to call it that, because that 1 creature, Thalia's Lieutenant, it is a 5-power 2/2 as it adds counters to 4 different creatures of Brad's.
Not bad. So Brad is mindful of the fact that Koepke could be untapping with Reflector Mage Displacer here, though I believe he has Declaration in Stone.
The Declaration away the Tireless Trackers.
And I like going for the tracker there. There's 2 copies, and the attack here is probably going to force a chump block with the Reflector Mage, so doesn't even need to use the removal spell on that or the Displacer.
Yeah, Brad has... How quickly... This was just, what, over 2 turns, right? That Brad went from an even board to Koepke, with Koepke just swinging for lethal. I mean, this isn't lethal, but it sure feels like it.
Yeah, this is the Abyss territory.
The Abyss with no redraws. There's no Descend Upon the Sinful, something like that coming out of Koepke's deck.
Koepke has the elements for his game plan here. This is exactly what he's trying to do in the Band Company mirror. He has his Displacer, he has Reflector Mage, and Brad's just maintained most of his human synergies here with the Thalia's Lieutenant and just boarded in some really powerful sorceries, the Tragic Arrogance and the Declaration in Stone, that line up very well against Koepke's game plan.
Koepke playing it out here. It's going to go ahead and crack those clues, but looks like he's just been overpowered by the humans. And draws them both, and that's going to do it. Brad Nelson improves to 7-0 with Bant Humans.
I reiterate again, there's no reason that the deck that Brad Nelson was playing this weekend was going to have a bad Bant Company matchup.
No, and that, for as far as recipes to beat Bant Company, that's one of the best ones I've seen in a while. Bant Humans, back around the time of Grand Prix Minneapolis, was doing very well. It was near on top of the meta, and I think it really fell out of favor because it's not a Spell Queller deck, but it still may have a good Bant Company matchup.